You're watching SABC News. Good afternoon to you. My name is Bongi Wezwane, coming to you live from our studios in Nasrec, where we are setting up for just a moment, temporarily as the ANC continues with its ANC 55th conference. But let's remind you, if you have missed some of the results from earlier on, Cyril Ramaphosa has come back as party president and beating Zweli Mkhize. He got about 2,476 votes, Zweli 1,897. Deputy President Ronald Lamula bagging 315 votes, Oscar Mabuyane 1,858, Paul Mashitile 2,178. He's now the Deputy President of the ANC. National Chairperson was bagged by Gwede Mantashe with 2,062 votes. David Masondo 280 votes. Stanley Matabata 2,018. Secretary General went to Fikile Mbalula, who got 1,692 votes. Phumulo Maswale 1,519. Dumiseni Ntuli 1,080. And the first Deputy Secretary General, Tina Jomat Peterson, bagging 2,145 votes, with Nomvula Mukonyane getting 2,195. And she is now the first Deputy Secretary. And the second Deputy Secretary went to Rama Marupini Ramakgopa, 2,373 votes, beating Ronaldo Nalumango 1,948 votes. Treasurer General, a number of people thought that Bejani Shauke may show a stronger showing on this one when you look at some of the nominations that he had gotten there, but he got about 590 votes. Pulemabe 1,652, Mzwandile Masina 281, and Dr. Gwen Ramokgopa 1,809, and she is now the party's Treasurer General. So a lot of people have had quite a lot of reaction on social media, various platforms, even here on SABC News, about what does this top seven then mean for the ANC as it charts a path of renewal. And for me to understand this is with us is Professor Susan Booysen, a political analyst, who's joining us just to give us her reaction to this result. Thank you so much for your time. A number of people say some of the results were surprising, but this is politics. You can expect anything. For you, this top seven, what are your reactions?
Well, you know, at first I've heard phrases used like overwhelming endorsement of Ramaphosa's reform agenda, and I thought, I don't quite think so. It is, it's better than a loss for that camp, put it that way, but it's marginal. A few very flimsy majorities, at least 4 of the 7 on 102 vote majorities or less. And it could have gone different ways had there in some cases been two-way contests instead of three-way contests. And it's such a mixed bag, mixed slate here. We're not really allowed to use the word slate, but slates are slates. And it's a cross-slate result, this, on a very ambiguous, I would say, reform agenda.
Would you say the Electoral Committee achieved its mission of getting the delegates not to talk about slates, given the mixed bag of results that we got?
Well, you know, it was a complex type of slate, both the two base camps and very complex provincial overlays in terms of recruitment and cooperation and crossover. And then on the last day or so, what we saw yesterday, the splitting of the provincial slates. So it's really a three-dimensional type of slate, but that really influenced this and determined this election.
Now, Prof, some, as you say, have described it as his consolidation of power, the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, that is. Some are saying that this is a consolidation of power, but others are saying hold off because he doesn't have that much power just yet until he understands what his NEC is going to look like.
Yes, indeed, indeed. One can say there is good control for Ramaphosa if one looks at the fact that 4 of the top 7 positions are from his camp. So that would be quite reassuring for him, including Gwede Mantashe, who's really his torchbearer, his stormtrooper, all of the above that helped make this possible, if not made this possible. And so, and then we get to the NEC, where they possibly nominating today, this afternoon, maybe now, and then have to vote for those. And from the preliminary nominations, we see a really again, mixed bag. And if we go by the sentiment on the Congress floor, quite a few other ones who are from the Mkhize camp could really be elected to the NEC. So I think forthcoming is a difficult NEC that Ramaphosa may find difficult to control. And of course, a big weakness in Ramaphosa's repertoire here is that, of course, Ramaphosa camp could not secure deputy presidency for its camp. Oscar Mabuyane and Ronald Lamola did not make the grade there. And actually together, those two would have been only, if there had been one person, only 5 votes short of the majority that Paul Mashitile got.
So in your view, does it add a bit of a complication that he didn't get his number 2 wish?
Potentially, yes, because if we take that for matters like the Palapala issue are long not finished and forgotten, and should anything happen that Ramaphosa has to step aside or fall by the wayside for some other related reason, then Paul Mashitile would constitutionally be in a position to assume presidency of the country on a temporary acting basis, and that is certainly something that the Ramaphosa camp would have preferred to be without.
Prof, some say that a mixed bag is good for democracy because it means one faction, as they call them, is not dominant. In fact, to have a representation of some of what, ANC members may want to see. How good for democracy is it to have a mixed bag?
Well, it's probably as good for democracy as the mixed bag that the ANC is at this stage is. In that way, it is really representative and it reflects the ANC in the sense that it's really a range of different camps and 2 main camps. And that is the ANC, which comes together in organizational format, but is really not a united organization and has got no prospects of becoming a united organization, all these slogans notwithstanding. So it's reflective, and in the way that it reflects a broad base in the organization, it's probably democratically appropriate for the ANC that we have that. And yes, brace yourselves and fasten the seatbelts for a few years of very intense contests.
It's going to be very interesting then, Prof. Talking about representation and appropriate, 3 women in the top 7. Some say that this is a win for women representation within the party.
Well, it is certainly an improvement, especially in a serious position like Treasurer General. We've got a strong woman in that position. 2 Deputy Secretary Generals, yes, that's okay. But Deputy Secretary Generals, so typically in the ANC, over many years, many of these elective conferences have been women. It's almost insulting, a little space where it's safe to let the woman become in. So I look further to a point where women are much more in the senior positions. And had it not been for the addition of the 2nd Deputy Secretary General in the last few days, we would not have had 3, but only 2. But yes, I look forward to the women rising through the ranks to the more influential positions or the more high power positions. Secretary General office is very influential, very powerful, but the politically influential positions.
And Prof, how much of that hinges on the shoulders of the men as well in this organization? Because all the time when we have this conversation around representation, the focus is on the Women's League, and it hardly ever is on the men also creating the space within the political party for women to come in. How much of this representation and them rising to key positions like a Secretary General, for example, how much of that hinges also on the men in this organization making that space deliberately?
I definitely think a lot that gender consciousness and cognizance of the fact of how patrimony infuses all of society, how much a higher level of consciousness are there, would certainly serve the men in the ANC very well.
Prof, I get a sense that you and I are back again to discuss when we finally see who has made that list of the NEC, because I think therein lies a lot of conversations that you and I might have.
Yes, we have guaranteed gender equity in there, but is it really going to be powerful women that emerge in the NEC? That would be interesting to watch.
And it's going to be interesting to also watch what is in the content of his January 8th statement. Let's speak again during the course of the afternoon. That's Professor Susan Booysen.